Hey there, micro folks. This is Mr. Hooker, and this is the final video of Chapter 9, Decision Making. It's going to be short. I didn't really realize I was this close to the end of the chapter, but hey, the way this thing is set up, it doesn't tell me what slide I'm on. So here we are. Um, so number 7 on your common mistakes in decision making is fear of missing out, or FOMO. It's the tendency to invest in an asset based on past performance arising from the fear that you're a loser if you doesn't make a big profit like earlier investors. So after the '07 financial crisis and then the housing crash that came with it, um, people started flipping houses, and that kept on for a while. And they were making a ton of money, and a little, um, I guess, a business that came out of that were these people that went all around the country teaching people how to flip houses because people got into it and like all over. It was a kind of a regional business. People would buy houses because so many people had basically given up their houses and been foreclosed on, whatever. And then so there are all these dead houses out there, and so these places, these people would go to these areas where the housing crisis had hit pretty large, and just do these seminars on how to flip houses. And it became a thing. And so that was one of those things that people were getting into it. But, the more people that get into it, the less stock there is for everybody and the less money everybody's going to make. So it's a really weird thing when you start thinking about that. Like, it can't keep going like that. Um, and I guess all of that is what led us to where we are right now. I'm making this in January of 2026, and we are in a very weird market because normally you either have a buyer's market or a seller's market, and this is neither a buyer's nor a seller's market. So nobody wants to buy and nobody wants to sell. So kind of that thing. So there we go. Ever felt the wave of envy directed those who bought Bitcoin back in 2010? Um, so many early Bitcoin buyers are now millionaires. But for those of us who didn't buy early on, buying now based on past performance is type of irrational behavior. Responsible investment buyers advisors always warn past performance is no guarantee of future results. So that's always the truth. Status quo bias. That's the tendency to avoid making a decision altogether. Um, so it's now the law that if you have a 401k, if you're a company that has a 401k, people have to be automatically enrolled in it. When I started working way back in the day, when I started like full-time jobs and being eligible for retirement, um, you had the option to deny enrolling in the 401k or retirement plans, right? So a lot of people didn't. They were like, yeah, I can't really afford to enroll in that now. And then, you'd go, on and on. You'd be like, I'll enroll in it later. But what happens is whatever you choose at the beginning typically becomes your status quo. If you couldn't afford it on day one, you probably never think you can afford it. You probably never, you start spending your money based on what you started with, and you're never going to change that. That is your status quo. But if you did start with the beginning, that becomes your status quo, and you just continue um, investing in it. So the government finally figured that out, and they made that a law that, like, hey, if you're offering it, they need to be in it. Your employees need to be in it. So we're not going to give them a choice anymore. That's the way that worked out, and that has gone pretty well for the country. Um, so that was one of those things. So you got a lot of the way that looks. Another one that it's kind of interesting, and I stole this from another book, but you can see here, like status quo. If you ever get the choice to choose a status quo, choose carefully because this graph infograph here shows how important that is. This is a lot of countries, mostly European countries, but shows the percentage of the population considering to be organ donors. And you can pretty easily tell which ones are status quo no and which ones are status quo yes. So Denmark is somewhere around like 2%, the Netherlands just over 20, the UK just under 20, Germany hovering around 10%, but then Austria is at 100%, Belgium just under 100%, France is at 100%, Hungary is at 100%, Sweden is just over 80%. I don't know how they got that many people to opt out. Portugal's at 100% and Poland's at 100%. So you can tell that most of the people after those first four, you are automatically an organ donor, and not many people change that. And the ones up top, you are automatically not an organ donor, and not many people change that. So kind of interesting. So why do economists still use models based on rational behavior when people are at times irrational? So rational models still provide robust predictions about how people behave. We buy less when prices rise, which that's rational. And market forces compel people to behave more rationally over time. So when people are disciplined for their mistakes, rationality wins out over time. And it makes modeling simple. Okay, so rational models are just a simple, straightforward kind of thing. There are way too many different versions of irrational models. There is one for rational. It is easier to have one rational model than like 10 irrational models. So do one for the rule and then make the exceptions. And then you can model different exceptions if you want and work with that. And that is it. We will stop there and I will see you folks in chapter 10.